Hi, I'm Donna Fuscaldo. I'm a senior finance writer with business.com. Today we're speaking with Andrew Meadows, Senior Vice President at Ubiquity Retirement and Savings, about the potential tax benefits from your retirement savings account. Turns out, choosing a small business retirement plan is more than picking stocks and bonds. Small business owners have to think about the tax implications. After all, the more you're able to write off, the less you pay come tax time. That's important. Small business owners repeatedly pay more than they need to in taxes. Andrew is here to shed some light on that and provide tips on how you can maximize the tax deductions from your small business retirement plan. Hi, Andrew. Thanks so much for taking out the time today.
Hey, Donna, it's so great to be here. Thanks so much.
So, as you know, there's more to choosing a retirement plan when you're a small business owner. So, what are some of the general tax implications? What should business owners be thinking about as they navigate retirement?
The most important thing here is knowing that the best retirement plan option for a business owner is a 401k because of the tax benefits for that business owner. Not only does the business owner have higher maximum contributions for their own personal savings, but the small business also receives tax credits just for sponsoring the plan. Before January 1st, 2020, which is the Secure Act's effective date, so it's very recent, they could only claim about 50% of their total plan costs, up to about a $500 maximum. But now the limit is either $500 or, and hang with me here, or the lesser of $5,000 or $250 for what they call non-highly compensated employees eligible to participate. And I know this sounds complicated, but a little bit of math can save thousands of dollars for entrepreneurs when they're starting their retirement plan. The only thing you really want to think about, though, is that these credits only last for the first 3 years that you have the plan. So it's important to take advantage right from the start of the plan.
Why did it change? Why did it get more generous for small business owners?
Well, I think we have a real retirement savings problem in the United States. And certain states have really recognized this and said, federally, we need to make this more advantageous for the small business owners, but especially for those employees who are working for the small business. They don't typically get some of the higher compensation strategies or benefit packages that they would for a larger organization. So how do small businesses stay competitive? This federal mandate or this federal act that they released is a way for small businesses to be able to do that with the support of the government.
When it comes to retirement plans, should a 401k be the first stop? Is it for every type of small business, or you need a certain amount of employees?
Yeah, it really isn't. It used to be, though, that the 401k plan was really only great for the more mature or larger organizations. And the truth is that's very different these days. The company I work for, we've been in business for 22 years, really helping those small businesses get to where they need to be. Now we're seeing a lot more of those kinds of companies join the fray and be able to help small businesses with that. But 401k plans can be expensive and can take a lot to manage for some small businesses, depending upon how many resources you have to actually run the plan. So what's happened is actually a state mandated plan has been put into place for several states. States like California, Illinois, and Oregon have mandated a retirement plan for companies of a certain size, meaning that you're required to start some type of plan. Now, typically these are payroll deduction IRAs. So they act like a 401k that you can put money pre-tax away through paychecks and combine the easy administration and low cost of an IRA.
So if you don't want to do a 401k, you can't afford it, your employees aren't interested in it, what options do you have as a small business owner to save for retirement and kind of reduce the taxes you owe?
Yeah, you're going to want to look at that IRA option, that payroll deduction IRA option. There'll be a lot lower cost. There's only caveats, though, to that. You can put in as an individual up to $19,500 annually for that 401k plan. For IRAs, it's much less at about $6,000 a year. So really looking at determining for the business owner what is their primary goal for putting money away for their retirement and what kind of tax benefits are going to help that small business owner. But it's also really important, to your point, to really look at what the employee's goals are. Just because maybe you're not paying as much as a larger employee or employer would for those types of plans, you really want to find out what's important to your employees. So part of designing a plan is to ensuring that you're attracting and retaining great employees. And to that end, your plan will want to be designed as valuable to them as well as the owner. With 401ks, you've got a lot of flexibility. How do you determine what the entry period is, if there's a vesting schedule attached? And of course, a generous match can always be ways to ensure that that happens.
Are those things small business owners need to offer now? I know labor shortages are everywhere. Competition is fierce. Everyone wants top talent. Is that 401k going to make the difference?
I absolutely think it will. When you look at a total compensation package for employees, it isn't just the base pay or commissions or bonuses that you might get, but the total compensation package, including how competitive is your healthcare, how competitive is maybe your HSA or FSA if you have that option. But more importantly, the second most requested benefit these days right after healthcare is retirement. If you're not looking out for your employees' future, they're going to be able to recognize that through your benefits program, and could be the determination of whether they choose you as an employer or some other company.
So if you're not doing 401k and you decide to do an IRA, A, can you offer that to your employees too? And then B, how do you choose between a Roth and a traditional IRA?
Absolutely. Yeah, there are so many different types of IRAs. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a payroll deduction IRA out there. And really, when you're determining whether you choose a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA, that has a lot to do with a couple of different factors. Number one being the employee age. The younger that you are, the more likely is that you're going to be in a more harsher tax bracket the older that you get and the further you move along in your career. So a Roth IRA is probably going to be a good idea for some of those younger investors who want to say, I'm not going to be taxed as harshly now, so I'll put in that money after tax. So when I do get older and closer to retirement age, I can take that money out without some of the harsher tax implications that I might be in by the time I reach closer to retirement age.
Okay, so to a lot of small business owners, this sounds really, really complicated. So how do you go about navigating choosing your plan, starting your plan, getting your employees on board, and then finally, how do you figure out what the tax benefits of it is?
Yeah, in my experience, it always starts with the owner's goals. And that is for a couple of reasons. One, when the owner's choosing the retirement plan, they're taking on a level of what's called fiduciary responsibility in choosing the plan provider, as well as the advisor if there is one. We learned that lesson hugely in 2008, 2009, right? Therefore, the plan is going to benefit the owner by allowing them to design it for their employees, so that there's certain provisions that can help the owner contribute as much as possible from both the company perspective as well as their own. Like I said earlier, there's also your employees' goals. What is it that they're trying to reach? But the most important part of 401ks or even choosing any kind of retirement plan are the costs. I mean, there are costs when it comes to running your retirement plan. A lot of employees think, oh, my employer sponsors the retirement plan, so it's free to me. But that isn't always the truth there. With the 401k, you've got your regular invoice costs that can come either monthly, quarterly, or annually. But there's also some more hidden costs. And even though the fee disclosure rules say that providers have to tell you how much they're taking or how much they're charging, the investments can also have their own charges in the form of transaction fees or even commissions to your provider or advisor, which can be 2 or 3% of your overall savings. Those monies can add up the more that you save. So it's important to make sure you know what are the upfront costs and then what are the back end costs that might not be as clear or on that proposal when you're choosing that provider. Lastly, I think when you're looking at a small business, resources are really, really important. So you have to look at what is the cost of the time it takes to manage that plan. There's a lot of cyclicality to how these things are done. And it's important to make sure that you're reporting your contributions each pay period, no matter the plan that you choose for your small business. So who's going to do that work? Is it your provider, or is it someone internally who's already doing your payroll or other types of administrative duties regarding your benefits? And so it's important to really notify or figure that out. Some ways that some employers have been able to navigate that is the increasing importance of having your 401k plan integrated with your payroll provider. So that way you or your company doesn't have to be responsible for reporting that money. They can just work with the payroll provider to do that on your behalf. Now, there might be an additional cost for them to do that, but it's probably going to be lower cost than what you're paying for you to, provide the salary for those employees who are doing the work.
And then finally, in terms of how you choose a provider, whether you're working with a payroll company or a plan provider, what are some attributes or what should you be looking for in your provider?
I always think it's important to not only look at the cost, but know who's getting paid what, so that you can assess what benefits you're actually getting as the one sponsoring the plan. Additionally, it's the investments. For a lot of companies these days, it's important to have more socially conscious investments in your plan. So make sure you're choosing a provider whose investments you appreciate, the strategies that you appreciate. And as we know, everyone's path to retirement is different. So I always think it's important before choosing an actual provider, talk to your bookkeeper. If you have an advisor, talk to the advisor. Know what about the tax credits and the process for being able to get those, so you'll know what plan is going to be right for you. And this is important too. I think when we look at choosing advisors aren't always sort of the registered representatives or the registered investment advisors that you might hire, but it's likely that you know someone who's already gotten to that important milestone of retirement, and just simply asking others, how did you get there? What did you do? What did you learn? Could be really, really important information as you choose a provider that you want. And lastly, I think for small business owners, never underestimate a good employer match or profit sharing. There's several ways that you can ensure your employees are taken care of while earning tax incentives for the business. So it is very much, when you're looking at a provider, look at the holistic view of what your plan is going to need, how your company currently acts, and choose what strategies are going to be best for you. For a lot of small businesses, especially for high earning owners like dental offices, for example, you might want to look into certain strategies such as safe harbor or new comparability. I know those are jargony terms. Google them, look them up, get a little educated as you're going into that process. But really, the sky's the limit on how much you can put away, as long as it's a smart move for you, the business, and ultimately for your employees.
Excellent. This was great. This was so informative, and I'm sure it will help tons of small business owners. So I want to thank you so much for taking out the time today.
Thanks, Donna. This is my pleasure. I love talking retirement. So any chance I get to do it, it is my honor.